Last beat of measure 18. 5 and 1, 4 and 2, 5 and 1, 4 and 2. So, with that fingering, there are a few things also to consider. We do have a moment where we have to cross over. We are crossing over and we're letting go of that third finger. So I'm back in measure 17, I'm on the third beat. When I cross over, I let go of 3. That allows me to get to the 4-2. If I don't let go of the third finger, you can see that I have no way of crossing over to this next interval. Even though I cross over, I'm not rotating to the right to play. I'm crossing over basically and balancing straight down. So this idea of the crossover here is what we call a hybrid rotation. We have double rotations, we have single rotations, and in double note playing, we have something called a hybrid rotation. So you can see it crosses over. Here I have a double, and I'm letting go of the 1-3 slightly, both voices. I can then connect to the 4-2, the 5-1, the 4-2. A lot of this can be connected. Here, I obviously, at measure 18, I'm now in the first beat. What's important here is that the thumb releases, because if the thumb doesn't release, it can't play again. So it's very important to realize what notes, what fingers are going to play again. If I'm in the beginning of measure 18, going from the first note to the second note, then that thumb is playing again. The moment I play this first 16th note, my thumb is letting go so I can play again. Now, in addition to the rotation, which has to function in the way I said, being either a double rotation or a hybrid in places where we cross over, the other issue here is also a little bit of physical shaping. Physical shaping is the up and down landing of the finger, hand, and arm as a unit. You can see it very clearly, say, in a B major scale. You can see that I don't stay at the same height. I'm going to different heights up and down. So when we talk about shaping, we're talking about a kind of landing at different heights, almost like a staircase. Stepping up to a stair, placing your foot down, but you're at a new elevation. So as I do this scale, you can see I'm at slightly different elevations. When you put those elevations next to each other, they form kind of curvilinear shapes over the keys. We call them over and under shapes. And in this passage, it's very important to understand what are the over and under shapes that are happening here. So let's take, for example, measure 17 and do a little bit with the shaping. So if I start here, I have what's called a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 note shape. In a 5-note shape, why do I call it 5 notes? 5 notes tells us where the high point is. If we have an odd number of notes in a shape, we have a high point on a particular note. If we have an even number, we have a high point between 2 notes. So in this case, 1, 2, this is my high point. So the notes are getting higher to here and then back to level on the beginning of the 4th beat. The next over shape goes from that note. We always interlock shapes. The end of one shape becomes the beginning of a next. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notes in that shape. So that brings us from the 4th beat of measure 17 into the second 16th note of measure 18. And we usually draw what looks like a phrasing mark, but it's a shaping mark. We draw sort of curved lines from one note to the next to give us some help in determining where do we go and how do we choreograph that. From the second note of measure 18, we have a short 3-note overshape. 1, 2, 3, followed by another 3-note overshape. 2, 3, followed by a 1, 2, 3, 4-note overshape, followed by a 3-note overshape. From the measure 18, third beat, that's 3 notes in the overshape. This is a slight undershape. I'm moving from the third 16th note of beat 3 in measure 18 to the 4th beat. Those 3 notes, you can see, I'll show you from above, you can see how my hand moves across. That forms what would be called an undershape. And we finish with a 5-note overshape to the downbeat of measure 19. So as those elements are combining together, you won't see very much. You know, you won't see a lot of movements of the arm, but you feel them, and it gives you a certain smoothness. And then so we have a combination of several things. We talked about the rotation here and how it functions. We talked about the fingering. The pulse helps a great deal, keeping track of where the beat is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That helps tremendously in organizing the passage. The grouping in this particular passage also goes by the beat. So the beat and the grouping help us keep ourselves organized. So I hope that that can be helpful. I wanted to quickly move to the next example. This example is an example from a Scriabin Prelude, Opus 11, number 7 in A major, and this is measure 19. Measure 19 is the second system of the handout, the first measure. And the complaint is that I play the A major chord that starts measure 19 with 5, 4, and 2 in my right hand, so that I can play the next note, a G sharp, with my thumb. The problem is I feel some pain in between my second and third finger of the right hand, on the top of my hand. It feels like my 2 playing the A natural in the black key area is wedged between the black keys G sharp and A sharp, creating a slight stretch between the 2 and the 3. It seems as if this slight stretch is open up. Sleep is what causes the discomfort, sorry. I tend to feel this discomfort in other passages too, anywhere where I have to open up the hand and there is a stretch, quote unquote, between the 2 and the 3. So one of the things that we should discuss here is, how do we open the hand? In other words, if we actively open up our hand, we will feel the opposing set of muscles pulling back at us. That creates, quote unquote, tension. But if we actually allow something else, like if you took 2 fingers of your other hand and opened up your right hand like that, you would have a different experience. You wouldn't feel an active stretch in the right hand. You can try that along with me. Just take 2 fingers in the left hand, place them on 2 fingers of the right, thumb and 5, and just let the left hand open up your right hand passively. You can memorize that feeling of opening passively and apply it to this. In other words, if I form that chord in the air prior to playing, I actually do feel exactly what this person was saying. I feel very stretched between 2 and 3. So I can show you from above how it feels very stretched between 2 and 3. But if I just allow my hand to use the rotation to open it, I have a different experience of those notes and my body. I don't feel stretched when the hand is opened naturally. Now, positioning is also important. Where do I position my torso and where do I position my forearm? When we practice hands separately, we always position the torso for whatever we're playing in that particular hand. And we adjust it when we play with the other hand to find out where they feel comfortable with hands together. But if you're working on hands separately, you adjust it for that hand separately. So my notice that my body is a little bit over to the right. When I'm here, it feels a little bit isolated away from whatever I'm doing. So I wanted to say that when we have intervals in chords, we also open up and this part of the hand becomes slightly more open. That means that the wrist needs to get higher. The chord will feel quite difficult if you're at level here, trying to get the keys down. The wrist can be higher because the whole mechanism is higher. We don't just put an isolated wrist higher, it's the whole mechanism. So if my body is a little bit over there, I also have my forearm in a position where that chord feels easy. If I'm like this, it feels kind of twisted and I also feel the stretch. So the position of where my arm is important. In this particular passage, the arm should be a little bit more out to the right, just in a comfortable place. Like with every other instruction, somebody can overcorrect. Somebody can say, oh, I heard you should have your arm out, and then it goes all the way over here. That's not correct either. It's trying to find and experience the most comfortable position for that chord. Now, also, as you're playing that chord, it is coming from the rotation. So the rotation is acting as opening that chord. I'm not opening the chord actively. Now, from that chord, there's another issue to be dealt with, which is the fact that the chord has 3 notes opposed to 1. So we have a component called the walking hand and arm. It's a vertical movement of the finger, hand, and arm. It's best explained if we can remember how children play. When children play, they often play like this, a kind of pumping action. And I usually say that's like a very exaggerated walking hand and arm. It is a very natural motion, but it's way too big, as you see with young children. We need it, though, in our advanced playing also, but to a far lesser degree. You just have to ask yourself, how much forearm down do I need to make those 3 notes feel easy? The other thing that's very common is for the thumb to be away from the other fingers when it's not playing. Sometimes just stretching, it's used to stretching, or sometimes people put it under and they squeeze it under. So it's important to not have the thumb all the way over here. I'll show you from above. So the thumb is not over here. It's with the hand. Now, once you've played that chord, your body is in the right place, the walking hand and arm, the height of the playing is right. Then you have another up and a down to the single note. That helps tremendously because we can play the chord well and not have support for the single note. So we also need, as small as it is, a slight down for that single note. And you'll see from the side that I'm not going extremely up and down. You probably won't really see it visually very much, but I feel down, down.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Sorry, Bob. Yeah. Somebody's saying that your camera is off. Oh, now she's saying it's maybe just her problem. Okay.
I see camera moving? Is anybody else see my
All right.
camera moving?
Now I'm
All
getting
good
the
here.
message that it's fine. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no problem. Technology has its ups and downs, just like the walking hand and arm. Oh my. All right, first goof of the day. All right, so let's talk about what happens after this moment, because maybe we can solve this moment, but it doesn't feel good in context. One of the things that Talmud discovered was very often, not always, very often, but not always, we have to disconnect slightly from a single note to an interval. So that's what's happening in measure 19. I am not absolutely connecting that thumb to the next chord. When I connect that thumb to the next chord, the chord feels very difficult to put down. So that is in the area called grouping. We have different kinds of grouping. Sometimes we group by the beat, and sometimes we group from the denser sonority. This is an example of grouping from the denser sonority. So I'm grouping from here, and I'm letting go of the second note. That gives my arm the freedom to support the next interval. One of the suggestions I had fingering-wise after that moment is in the last part, the last 2/16 notes of the first half of the measure, I actually did thumb. Instead of taking the hand way out of position to go to 2, I did thumb. We can do thumb very often because rotation gets us there very, very quickly. Left. It's a very fast motion. The other thing that can disturb the right hand here is the whole notion of where does the left hand come in. I think in this particular example, I would start the F sharp and the bass on the second eighth note together with the G sharp above it, so that that would come together. And feeling that this comes together. I think as it goes faster, that will feel much more comfortable than trying to shove all the notes in right before that chord or even after the G sharp. So I hope that begins to help with this passage, and we can move on, I think, now to the Bach. So I think we're going to have someone wants to ask questions or wants to play. I'm not sure what they would like to do.
Yeah, if that's the F major invention for Kolya, that would be me.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I want to play two. Actually, I want to start with a technique, generic technique question related to the B flat. The B natural major scale, and then show you two passages from the invention.
Okay, sure.
I have 3 cameras, right, left, and above. What do you want?
You're showing me a B major scale?
Yes, in the left hand. Do you want to see it from the left side?
Yes, please. Maybe I'll see it from several angles before saying anything.
Okay, let's start with the left side. Hold on, let me switch. All right, do you see my hand moving?
I do.
Okay, great. My question is going downwards on the left hand, the thumb crossing, because that's still not 100. I mean, I'm making great progress with my wonderful teacher Darren, and we're getting there. But I just wanted to get your opinion as well.
Sure.
So the crossing from 4 to the thumb still doesn't feel 100% relaxed and natural.
I understand. Very good. May I see it from the other side?
Sure.
Very good. Once more, and then I think I can make a suggestion. Okay, very good. May I see it from above if you have that?
Sure. Hold on.
Okay, very good. I think we have the information that we need. Okay, so very good. Things are good. Here's what I see, and I'll show you from the camera above on mine. Can you see my camera above?
I do.
Okay. So what I see is an effort to do the rotation. The rotation to me is a little bit up and down versus absolutely sideways. So when we talk about the rotation, there is a movement that goes sideways to bring us straight down. That is very true. But I think there's a little bit of pushing off the bottom of each key. So when you go into a key, and I'll show you from the side for a second, we don't push up from that key. We land on that key, we're rested on the bottom, and then the rotation goes sideways like this. So it's a sideways motion. I just think, Darren, maybe it's a little bit, and Koja, a little bit too much. The walking hand and arm is doing too much of the job here. But second to that, more pertinent to your exact question is what I saw, maybe you don't do it all the time, but what I saw was when you arrived on the second finger, the thumb was located here. Now, when we go to 2, the thumb has to go directly behind 2. Do you see the difference between being here and being here?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean, and Darren is constantly working with me on that. Yes, my thumb is not always following.
Okay, good. Why don't we try something that might help, okay? Turn your hand upside down like this.
Okay, let me switch cameras again so you see my hand.
Okay, great. And just experience that you can move your thumb across your hand without squeezing. So it has to feel very light. And now do it together with the rotation. Right. Try to get comfortable with that experience. How is that experience for you right now?
Feels very free.
Very free. That's wonderful. That will help you understand what happens when it's actually positioned under the hand.
Okay.
Okay. Now, it's interesting. You're doing it this way. You can also turn your arm, which would be clockwise. You can turn it in the air. Actually, turn it in the air clockwise. Counterclockwise. Sorry. Counterclockwise. At the same time you turn your arm counterclockwise, you can let your thumb fall in. That's it. That's it. See, now imagine that that's the rotation you're doing on the fourth finger before crossing. Can you feel the relationship of the rotation and how the thumb is where you need it?
Yes.
That's excellent. Wonderful. Great job. Okay, great. So let's go back now and let's see. We're going to go 1 to 2 and just let the thumb fall behind the 2. That's it. Now go to 3 and let it fall behind 3. Now at this moment, see if you can recall what we did with that rotation and the fourth finger. Rotate to the 4 and move your thumb to where you need it. Good. How was that? Any better?
Yeah, that felt freer. Still
Okay.
perfect, but improving.
I still think that you don't quite allow the arm to turn on the fourth finger. It looks like you're staying straight in the key and you're trying to get over there that way. Can you think about the rotation turning a bit more? How was that?
That felt better.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of the way in which the thumb moves under the hand and the rotation on the fourth finger to start with. I would concentrate on those two elements, and I think that that will certainly make the cross under improve.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Did you want to move to your other questions?
Yes, let's move to the Bach. This is, I have a little bit, afraid of the black keys. And here's a passage. Sorry, I forgot to share the score. I don't know if I just show you because there's a passage at the beginning of the second part. The passage where I basically have to move into the black key area to avoid twisting. And that was a struggle, and Darren guided me well into this, and I just want to double check if I'm on the right path.
Okay, can you tell me where you are in the score?
The passage is in my edition bar 14, what edition? Oh, it lost the cover sheet. It's on the left hand. It's.
Yep. Okay. I see where you are. It's in my score. It's bar 14 into 15.
Correct. That's exactly right. We have the same edition.
Okay.
Okay, great. So I start one bar ahead and I do it slowly.
Okay. So you seem to get there. What's your
Just
question?
double checking. It's not a problem area because Darren is just double checking.
Okay, great.
Okay, then we can move on to the next passage, which is bar 19 and 20. Again, a twisting problem and black key area to get those 16s move in the left hand right. I had a bit of a tension issue there with those 16s movements in the left hand.
Okay. Let's try. Yeah, one thing that I think could help. I'm so glad that this type of passage came up because I think it can be very helpful to people. One of the things that's very confusing sometimes for people is what do we do when the passage is in front of our body? And sometimes certain concepts in the work seem to conflict with what I'm going to say now. So we have to be very flexible. So we talk a lot about not twisting, not moving the hand to this side or this side. But we don't talk about the fact that we do have some movement of the hand that can go left and right. When we're in front of the body, the look of the hand, finger, hand, and arm will look as if it's twisted. But actually, it's moving in a way that's not producing twisting. What do I mean by that? In other words, where I see your arm in measure 19 is here. Okay? Now, actually, when my arm is positioned here, it's going to cause me to twist to the thumb. Now, you might look at what I'm doing and think, wow, he looks twisted. But actually, I'm doing a number of things that I don't feel twisted at all. And that's our goal here, is to see if we can get you to not feel twisted, okay? So here's my recommendation. Can you look at my torso? You see where I am? Do you see how I'm slightly moving to the right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Now, that allows for my forearm to come closer to my torso. So you need to get yourself in a position where these three notes can be played comfortably as a chord. Right now, I can see that you're very far inside the black key area. If your torso is over to the right enough, that will bring your fingers out. There you go. There you go. So you have to find it in your body where exactly you need to move to. And it might seem a little bit odd at first because we're not always used to moving our bodies quite like that, you know? So you have to stabilize yourself. Like your left foot has to provide some stability so you can push off the left a little bit and push your torso over to the right. Can you try that? How was that?
Quite free.
Wonderful. So it brings up a very important point, which is we can do all of the right movements, but if we're in not the most correct position, those movements won't function as well. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Yeah. So, and playing in front of the body is a very, a more complicated scenario because we have to move the body slightly back often. We have to move it over often. And having the forearm that close to us sometimes feels a little bit strange to people, but you just have to get back a little bit so that this is comfortable. If it's here, that movement, that twisted motion over to the thumb will always produce tension, it'll produce instability, and others. So I think in the last 3 minutes, maybe we can take a question. I'm seeing something about shaping. Mary is going to give a lecture on shaping on Sunday, so hopefully she will answer that, but I do want to give some answer to the question. The question is, explain more the numbering. The numbering is to help us understand where the high point of a shape is. Quite simply, if we have an odd number of notes in a shape, the high point is on a specific note in the middle. So if you have 3 notes, odd number, the high point is on the second note. If you have 5 notes, the high point is on the third note, and so on. If you have an even number of notes in a shape, you have 4 notes, say, in a shape, it's between 2 notes, 2 and 3. So it's a question of timing it, it's a question of pacing it, it's a question of feeling it. All shapes work the same way, meaning that they all start and the end point is the beginning of the next shape. So they interlock, they intersect and they interlock. And then the other type of shape that we have is what's called a scale shape. Whenever we're crossing under, we need the height of the finger before the thumb. That is your high point before the thumb. Every cross under has a high point right before the thumb. Going down in the left, it would be 3. If I'm crossing from 4 to 1, I'm getting higher, higher, highest, back to level. Higher, higher, back to level. Higher, 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 back to level. So that's how very, very basic shaping works. Okay. Barbara, is there any other pressing question?
I don't believe so. If someone wants to jump in, they can.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Bob. That was super helpful. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're doing great. Really, really great work. You have a great teacher.
May I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Hi. I wondered if you could just elaborate a little. You talked a little bit about when the body has to move. So when your hands come across, you've got to move back a little bit. Or when you're moving to the right, you talked about stabilizing yourself a little with your left foot. But when you're going back, I thought that the weight, you always had to feel like your weight was forward.
I would say that the intention of the body, we would never move back so much that we would feel that our weight is falling backwards. It's very slight. It's not enough back to feel off balance back. So everything is within a very small, narrow range. Let's put it that way. And just to go over quickly, when we move up the instrument, we usually move over to the right and slightly forward. When we move down, it's the mirror image, obviously. We talked about being in front of the body. And the other scenario is when the arms play at the extreme ranges, we're forward.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help?
Yeah. Can I just ask, if when you're, sorry, this is really detailed, but when you're moving to the right, do you feel like you're actively pressing your left foot into the floor to really stabilize
No.
yourself rather than just being like,
It's very light.
balancing on your
It's,
sit bones or something?
it's very light. It's very light. It's just a sense. You feel that you
That's like enough
unweight
feeling.
ever so slightly that side,
Yeah.
and it helps you get the weight over to the other
Yeah.
side.
Yeah. So you do
Okay,
feel
thank
like
you.
in the way. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
not moving your feet anywhere. It's very subtle.
Yeah, you feel the weight shift. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, everyone. I think we have to end now. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. And thanks,
You're
Darren, for
welcome.
the
You're
great
very
video.
welcome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Oh, it's Karen.